It's 11 minutes after 7 o'clock. The time is moving. What a lovely evening. What a lovely evening we are having here in the studio with Apostle Sunny Osoro. Hey, guys, people has journey of their lives out here. It's not easy for others. And as we speak, he makes me realize how blessed am I. And sometimes we're not grateful to look at the little things. I've never went through what you went through. I was always with my parents. There was always peace. But did I appreciate that enough, or is then that I start to feel like, hey, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. We just played you a beautiful song, "Draw Nigh to You," by Fred Hammond. This gentleman seemed to be loving Fred very much, but also the music is calming. It's Yo Batum. It's just beautiful. Why this song, "Draw Nigh to You"?
Yes, draw nigh to you. That's the desire of our hearts. We want to be closer and closer to Him. We know when we become born again, spiritually, we are just like Jesus. Because it says, for as He is, so are we in this world. But in our mind, there is a transformation that is occurring. It
Mm.
says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so I want to draw nigher to Him in my mind,
Mm.
in my system. Yes, in my spirit, I'm His child, fully like Him. But in my mind, there have to be a constant drawing near to Him, because the more of Him we know, the more of Him we want to know. There is no end to the searching, of God. And that's what we live for. We live to become more and more like Him. And that's the journey of our life.
Wow, that's beautiful. I like the way you interpret how you feel about these songs that you have chosen. Before we went to a short break, we were still talking about the gentleman that you called the friend. I think this will answer even the question whether you find what you are looking for.
Mm.
You said that you called a friend, and then he was able to call you after he was not picking up your calls to say, hey, why are you phoning somebody else? I've prepared for you everything that you desire. And what happened from then?
Yeah, so when he complained like that, oh, I've prepared, I've been making preparations for you to come, and you went
Mm,
to call someone else. This is someone who has not spoken to me in months.
mm,
And then he now ended it by saying, don't call my number again.
ha.
And, and then I felt, oh, okay. It seems like this was never going to
Happen.
happen. But before then, I'd had a dream where he gave me egg, and I broke the egg, about to eat the egg. I broke the shell, about to eat the egg, and then
Mm.
I noticed there was a thread hanging on the egg. So I
It was,
decided to
it
take
was
off
there, it was not
the
gonna
thread.
happen. Mm,
As I was taking off the thread so I
mm,
can eat the egg, I noticed more thread.
mm.
And as I kept taking off the thread, I noticed the egg was reducing in my hand until it got finished in my hand.
Wow.
And there was no
Your dream
no more
was
egg for
pretty
me,
clear.
you know. So but
Mm.
eventually he sent that ticket money.
Oh,
Yeah, he
wow.
sent a major part of that ticket money eventually.
Mm.
And then that was after I chatted his wife, and then he sent that ticket money. And then I it wasn't complete though, but it was
Mm.
a
At least,
huge part
yeah.
of it. And then now I've been spending money because of the time and all of that. So I
Yeah,
didn't
the
even have
quality.
money to add up to it again.
Sure.
So I felt like
Another
this
trouble.
was another
Oh.
trap. And it was, at this point, it was 7 days left. And I'd come back to Nigeria, to fly from Nigeria this time.
Okay.
And then 7 days left, the ticket money was not complete. And everything just looked like it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, ne?
I went to church on a Sunday morning, and at the House on the Rock in Lagos. And this was in 2010, August 2010, the last Sunday in August 2010. And the pastor was preaching on the topic, breaking of barriers.
Hmm.
And then I felt God was talking to me.
Wow.
There was a barrier waiting for me to break.
Mm-hmm.
So I left that place with faith, knowing that this was going to work out. I didn't know how. I didn't have a complete ticket money. I had only 7 days left on my visa. I didn't have an invitation letter. I didn't have anything, but I had a word.
Wow.
And then I spoke to my cousins. I told them, you know what? I'm leaving. I'll call you when I get to South Africa tomorrow. And that was how I went. Got to the airport. I found out if they had one flight available from what they told me. I said, oh, how much? It was remaining 4,000 naira at the time to complete it, which was an equivalent of 200 rands.
Sure.
This was 2010.
Equivalent to 200.
In 2010, you know, now it's even worse. Now
worse now.
Yeah, now it's about 18,000 for 200 rands, or thereabout. Yeah, you know. So, but back then it was 4,000 naira for 200 rands.
Now 18,000.
Now it's gotten that bad. Yeah.
Sure.
So at the time, and 4,000 naira was very good money at the time as well too. 200 rand was also very good money too in 2010. So that's what I needed to complete my ticket, and I stood for a while wondering what would happen. And then I remember the message, breaking of barriers, and then I started praying and confessing that this barrier has been broken. And then a man walked to the airport, to the counter. He was asking them, what flight do you have tonight? And then they said, sir, we only have flight to South Africa tonight. And he said, I don't want to go to South Africa. Don't you have any flight going somewhere else? They said, no, sir, just flights to South Africa. He felt like he wanted to travel. He wanted to go somewhere. And then I looked at this man. I said, somebody is here. He needs to complete his ticket to South Africa. Somebody else is looking for any flight anywhere to go. And then he turned to me. He said, what's the problem? I said, I need 4,000 naira to complete my. He said, that just that? I said, yes, sir. And he counted 4,000 naira and gave me.
Wow.
I said, thank you so much, sir. I completed my ticket. That was the first barrier I broke. I didn't know there was more barriers waiting for me. So I left there, and I found I've been standing on the wrong queue for a long time, only to realize I wasn't queuing to board South Africa. You know, it was Arik Air. I was queuing on the wrong queue. By the time I went to the boarding gate for South Africa, the gate was closed. And then I'm saying, no, I broke the first barrier. This second one, I would break it. And then I spoke to them. They said, no, go and come back the following day. I said, it's not possible. I can't even read
if you miss
the ticket. If I miss this flight, I don't even have money to get, you know, to even add up to get a new flight. Besides, I have 7 days left on my visa. So I can't even, you know, travel just a very few days, you know, like, you know, on the visa. And then they said no, that they can't help me. And then at some point, I started meditating on the words that I have broken this barrier. And then at some point, they went and called their boss. He came to me. He said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Akwa Ibom State. He said, oh, he's my brother. You guys must board him. And then I got boarded. And then I got to immigration. There was another barrier waiting for me. When I got to immigration, can we see your invitation letter to South Africa? I didn't have any. Hotel reservation, I didn't have. Where's your basic travel allowance? I didn't have any money. So what do you have? I said, I've got a visa. They said, there's no way I'm letting you travel. You don't have any of all these things, just the visa. And then she started writing to return me back. And then while she was writing, I started meditating again. I was meditating and I was praying, and then I was declaring that I have broken second barrier. This third barrier must be broken, you know. And then he said to me, at some point, she just stopped for a while. And then she turned. She said, if you get returned back, I'll be in trouble. I said, I'm not going to get returned. She said, just go. And then I left. And then I passed through everything, got to the plane. And then I noticed they've been waiting for me. He said, we've been waiting for you now. Where have you been? And then I got into the plane, and then they shut the doors. And then we left.
You're the last one.
I was the last one to enter. And then by the time we landed South Africa, I said to myself, now the same barriers I was breaking in Nigeria, now I have to break these ones here. But I heard God. God said to me, it's going to be smooth all through. So I passed. They didn't ask me questions. They didn't ask me how much I had. They didn't ask me anything. Even when they were searching everybody's bags, they just asked me, what's in your bag? I said, my clothes. They said, pass. So and then I came out. And then that was how I got into South Africa. And then when I got into the land, I felt like I came back home. When I came into Johannesburg, something in me skipped like I was home. You know,
But did you have a
vision.
place to go?
So this same friend came and picked me. He was living in Pretoria at the time. And then he said, "So you finally got here, you know?" The pastor, I said, "Yes." And then he picked me from the airport, took me to his house. Remember, I didn't have any money. I didn't have any money. I didn't have anything, but I had a gift. I had um, I had pencils. I had sketch pads,
Okay.
that I traveled with.
Okay.
So one evening, a few days after I'd come in, I just decided to take a stroll, take a walk. Went into a restaurant, saw people, showed them what I do, and they were all interested. And that evening, I sketched 4 portraits.
Wow.
Within that space, they were just lining up to have their portraits done, and they were paying. And then I'm thinking, oh, okay, the land is welcoming me. That's good.
Wow.
And then I went back to the house. I told him, I said, I made some money this evening. He was shocked to see that I just arrived and now I'm already making money and all that. And so gradually, after 3 months, I'd moved from his house. Okay, I don't want to go into so many details, but so many things, went wrong. And he was a pastor. I was serving under his ministry, but so many things were not in order.
Okay.
I couldn't continue there. And so I said to him, honorably, I just told him that I wouldn't want to continue here because I don't have peace here. It was just a lot. There was so much, weight. Things weren't going well. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And then he said to me, "Can I see your passport?" And I'm thinking, okay, maybe he wants to help me extend the visa or something, with his documents and ministry and all that, which is nice. And the reason I told him was I wanted him to know beforehand so that if he wants to do it, it's something he was going to do voluntarily. And then he seized my passport. And then he raised he said the 3 months you spent in my house will speak against you. He said he said all manner of things. He insulted me. And then he left my house with my passport.
Wow.
And I had 5 days left on the valid visa because I'd already extended the first visa. So now this one that was valid was supposed to expire in 5 days. The extension I had done. And he was with my passport. So I'm thinking, what do I do? He said he needs the money he sent me for tickets before I can get my passport. So I said to him, okay, fine. Can I at least have my passport and I'll organize the money? I can't move around without a passport. He refused to release the passport back to me. So long story short, he left. And then after some days, I've spoken to people I know to speak to him. I've tried every means, he stopped picking my calls. He stopped responding to people. And then I felt like if I don't make a move now with the police, I'm going to be blamed if I become illegal and my passport is in his hand, or they meet me without my passport. So I went to the police station and reported. 2 cops said, no, he can't have your passport. Do you want us to arrest him? I said, no, please. I just need my passport back. And then they moved with me. They said, you're a good man. They took me, we went to his house, and then they spoke to him. He was refusing to release the passport. He was saying all manner of things. Then they called for backup. So eventually he released the passport and he said,
now party lands are drawn.
He said, cops are going to send you out of this country for bringing the cops to my house. Cops are going to send you out of this country. A few days from now, watch it. And then now I'm thinking, no, South Africa, no, the cops, there are no corrupt cops in South Africa. All the cops are innocent. They are good cops. That was my thinking. From the way these other cops assisted me, I felt it was like that all over the country. And then on the 8th of January, 2 days after the expiry of my extended visa, by the way, before it expired, I'd gotten my passport, and through the support of some ministers, I was able to extend my visa. So now I'm stuck. I get a call. Is this the artist? I said yes. Now I'm excited that I'm
It's
getting
business.
business is coming. I'm going to pay my rent for January 2011 now this time. And then he said to me, okay, stand by Church and Princelow, and what are you wearing so I can identify you? I described what I was wearing. And then while I was standing waiting, I'm like, no, I already have an extended, I've got a receipt that I've extended my visa, so I can't get arrested. And then the cop pulled over. It was corrupt cops, which I thought didn't exist in South Africa. And then he came straight to me. He said he needed to see I showed him my documents, showed him everything. He said it's fake. Even without confirmation or anything, he just said it's fake, that he's arresting me. I said, okay, sir, please, can I make a call? Someone was supposed to meet me here, And I called the number. It was on voicemail. And then I realized for real that it was this cop that called me, pretending to be a client. And then I said to him, okay, can I at least call people to tell them that you're taking me? He refused. He took my phone from me. And then he took me to another cell in Centurion. I was arrested in Pretoria Central. I was taken to Centurion. So to summarize everything, I spent 2 weeks in the cell. 17 souls gave their lives to Christ in the cell.
Wow.
I was charged as an illegal immigrant, and my receipt was seized by this corrupt cop. So I didn't have anything to prove, to show that I was legal.
But can someone do extension even twice on the visa?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if they still do that now. Yeah, but back then, yes. You could extend your stay twice.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because I went myself to do the whole extension, and I was issued a receipt. So I did it myself. So it's not like somebody did it for me.
For you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now he seized that receipt that I had with me, that he said it was fake. He seized it. So now I was charged as an illegal immigrant. So within those 2 weeks, I think God was just showing me what was happening. Showing me things, making me appreciate freedom.
Yeah.
So that I can preach the gospel, knowing that people needed to be saved from being bound. I had an idea of being bound in the cell. For 2 weeks I was in the cell. 2 weeks. But thank God, 17 souls I can remember were led to Christ.
Wow.
People got healed. I was, at some point, the cops would come to me for prayers.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, the cops would come to me for prayers. They said to me that there's something wrong with my case, that they arrested me in Pretoria Central. They were supposed to take me to Sunnyside Police Station,
Yes.
not bring me to Centurion, that they are trying to avoid something there, that there was something fishy. So the cops in Centurion already knew that I was innocent, So, but they were just treading, cautiously. And then,
to verify everything.
And then the immigration officer, when he came in, I'd done 2 portraits of him for him while in the cell. There was this rapport we had and all that. So the day he was to deport all of us that were in the immigration cell, a lot of us took us to Marabastad, and then we're in the queue, lining everyone up. I think they were taking people to Lindela.
Yeah,
so,
Lindela.
Yeah. So as they were stamping, taking, thumb prints, when he got to me, he said, "My chief, stand this side. I can't deport somebody like you." And then he put every other person in the vehicle, everyone. And then he said to me, "I'm going to seize your passport. Go back to the Home Affairs and get a reprint of the extension.
Okay.
The receipt, and let me document it as evidence that you got, and we're waiting for I said, okay, fine. He said, and if you don't come back, you'll be the most wanted man in South Africa. I said, no problem. So I left. Yeah, I got the receipt, got everything, came back, he documented everything, and then I was free.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was how I got free from that whole experience. So my journey has just...
Let's take a short break. Your journey, hey, yeah,
and then I'll come back and talk about the good sides.
The good side. right back.
Stop bullying today. Remember, you don't have to suffer in silence.
Yeah.
Never be bullied into silence.